So how's the mic volume? Okay, so I guess the first order of business is there anybody that still needs me to send them a password for Schofield? I'm very quiet. You need louder? Is that better? Okay. So does everybody have their Schofield account? Anybody not? I need to email for a password. Okay, so let me just go ahead and get that out of the way. Let's see. All right, so there's several of these I need to process. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Put this one over here right now. So Mr. Woods, I've got the request there. So Douglas, I just sent yours. And Ronan, I just sent yours. Check your email. So, Matthew, I just sent yours. So, who else do we need? Ronan, Matthew. Hang on a second. I've got to go sign a FedEx delivery for a shipment of wine. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So where was I? Let's see, who still needs one? We got Matthew, you should be taken care of. Ronan, you're all right. And Braxton needs one. Let's get that squared away. Braxton, I just sent yours. Check for your email. So does anybody still need a password on Schofield? Okay, God, they're coming out of the woodwork. Um, so let's see. Lilu. All right, let me get this one.
Professor,
Yeah.
would you like us to send you an email asking for the password?
Have you done that in the past?
I have not.
Yeah, then you need to do that so I can just reply to it to send it to you.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
The okay. Uh, Okay. So, Mr. Singh, you need one. Where's your email? Prob, did you send me an email with a request? Hello? Prob, are you there? So who else is left? Alistair. There it is. So TR. Okay. Alistair, I just sent yours. Okay, Lilu. Lilu, I just sent yours. So is there anybody that hasn't gotten one yet? Has everybody got their Schofield password? Okay, so I got that out of the way. Let's get rolling here then. Colin, you raised your hand. Where is that? Okay. Is everybody ready to go? So what I've got here on the screen that I'm sharing is a sign in to Schofield. So you have to go to well, I'll just kill all this and start over. I'll just do it step by step. You can follow along with me. So I've got my Xming running. So some flavor of X Windows Server would be good if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to. And then I'm going to bring up, right, and I'm going to pick, one of these Linux pool machines, and notice that I've got the X11 enabled, so it'll pump the X Windows stuff back at me. So I'm just going to open that up and then sign in with my password. So I'm on one of the Linux boxes, and so hopefully you're following along doing it. Let me know if you're having any issues. And then I want to go over to the Schofield machine. So rather than typing that all the time, oops, I have this little shell script with one line in it. So that's just going to execute that command when I run the script. And so I'm going to run that and log in. And so when I did the SSH command, I had the -y, which is the forward the X Windows stuff back. So I'm on Schofield, forwarding X Windows stuff over to the Linux pool machine I logged into, which is in turn through PuTTY, forwarding it back to my computer here. Is everybody okay? Have you gotten on Schofield? Anybody not? Everybody is logged into Schofield? See a bunch of people that are logged in here on Schofield. Does anybody have any issues getting on? We need to wait for anybody before we go further, because you're going to need to follow along step by step when I start explaining the stuff in the editor. To really learn it, you have to do it and get it in your fingers. So does anybody need help getting on Schofield? I don't see everybody yet. Well, speak up if you need help. So I'm going to crank up. I'm going to go down to my 247 directory, and then I'm going to go to my samples directory under that. And so you see my working directory is 247 samples. And I have some files in there. And
before you go on, there's
yeah.
some questions.
Can you turn up your mic a little? I can't hear you hardly good.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
Just get closer to it.
There's some questions in the chat. If you open that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, but it scrolled off the screen.
Okay.
So does anybody still need their Schofield password? Speak up. So Brandon, did you get yours? Sashi, do I need to do yours? Okay. Well, I got a lot of stuff here. Okay, so I'm going to go look at my email and see if I can get some of these passwords out so people can get on the system, because you're really going to need to get on and do it, follow along. So I'm going to go look at my emails to see any password requests are over there. Okay, I got one from Sam, so I'm going to do your Sam. Hang on. So it's sending yours out to you now, Sam. Any day now. Finish doing it. Prob, I'm going to set your password now. Hang on. Okay, I sent it to you, Prob. So Colson, I'm going to send yours. So it's sending it out now, Colson. Not exactly fast. I'll get it out. Come back. So Anna, I'm about to send yours. Kiyomi, it's sending yours out. Sierra, sending yours out. Sashi, here comes yours. So Troy, here comes yours. Gappa. Okay, I think I've cleared out all the ones that I had emails from. So if there's anyone that doesn't have their password yet, please raise your hand. Brandon, you didn't get one? Did you get one?
I haven't gotten mine yet. I did send an email earlier, but I'm not sure if that went through.
I think I just sent it out to you.
Maybe it just hasn't refreshed yet.
Let me look at sent items. Your last name is Eidem?
No, my last name's Dixon, Dixon.
Oh, I've got two Brandons.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So send me another email quick and I'll
Yeah, sure.
bounce it back to you.
Okay, I just sent another email.
Okay, it should be on its way. Colin, you need something? Colin? No, don't need anything. Okay, so if anybody doesn't have a password yet, please raise your hand. Far out. So we look like we got some folks logged on here. Does
Professor,
anybody need any? Yes, ma'am.
my password isn't working.
Okay, what's your
No.
last name?
Uribe, Uribe.
Okay. Send me an email and I'll bounce one back at you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, it says it sent it.
All right, thank you.
So Colin, you still need one?
You just did this.
Colin? Colin, do you still need your password? Yes, you do? Okay, so I'm gonna send you one here. Hang on. Okay. It's on its way, Colin. So now we look like Colson needs one. Colson, I just sent you one. All right, Sam, I'm going to send you one. Hang on. So there you go, Sam. So Brandon, did you not get your password or it didn't work for you?
No, I'm in.
Oh, okay. All right. So is everybody all right? Password was far out. Let's see if we can get this show on the road. So we got a bunch of people logging in here. All right. So if you haven't made some sort of, directories or anything in your home directory, it's probably a good idea to make a directory to play in as we create some files and play around. So I'm just going to do a make directory and I'm going to call it sandbox, right? So if I then CD to sandbox, right, then anything I put over here is just sort of, I know I'm putting files in here just to play with commands and stuff. And I know I'm not going to screw up anything else if I just stay here in my little sandbox and play around, right? So it's a good idea to have some little area you use for trying out commands when you're learning how to delete files and all that kind of crud so that you won't hopefully inadvertently blow away anything that you might want. So I've got my sandbox going. And now I'm going to say Emacs hello dot C, right? So I have X Windows stuff being forwarded back at me. And so now you're seeing the X window thing being drawn on my screen here. And when it comes up kind of small. There's nothing in there. So I'm going to make it a little bigger, give myself some real estate. Now, the thing about running applications on some faraway computer like this and then running a graphical interface is it drawing the pictures can be somewhat slow, as you're witnessing right now. If you were at the computer science department on our network talking to Schofield here, you probably could not detect any difference between the speed that the windows were getting refreshed for something running locally on your local computer there in the department versus something running remotely over on Schofield, because we've got gigabit connectivity between all those machines. So, network connections, you can't tell the difference. But my connection here at my house is a DSL ancient thing because I can't get anything else here where I live. And so the most it could ever possibly pump down at me is 3.5 megabits per second. So you can see little delays in that. The key to understand, though, is one, you don't have to use the X window stuff. You can use just a plain old terminal type text screen, or you can learn to use keyboard commands that don't require that this thing has to draw pictures at me constantly. And so what I'm going to teach you how to do, even if you're using an X Windows interface, is to use the keyboard commands so that everything will go really fast and it won't constantly having to be drawing a new picture for you other than just putting the text up there that you're playing with. The reality is, something you should realize is that real dyed in the wool old school computer geeks, when they get on the computer and they're editing and doing things and stuff, they hardly ever touch the mouse, because if you know the keyboard commands, it's far quicker to just do some little control XB than reach over, find the mouse, drag it over onto the screen and click on something. So real geeks, when they're using Unix and Emacs and all this kind of stuff, they don't mess with that mouse. And when they type on the keyboard, it's like Horowitz on piano. It's to see. They're just sitting there blasting all these keystrokes at the thing, and the computer is jumping through fiery hoops and instantaneously responding to them. So the truth of the matter is, knowing the keyboard interface into the commands is much faster than moving around and trying to find some picture to click on and then have it draw the screen for you. So I want to get you where you can, if you're doing the X window stuff, you can always fall back on the fact that you can come up here and click on file and then wait for it to draw that picture for you, right? But it's also, I can get that file menu up with a keyboard sequence. Anything you see up there in that menu, rather than clicking on it, I can do the following. Look at your keyboard and you see the escape key up there, right? Just below the escape key is a key that's got a backward leaning single quote tick looking thing, right? It's the unshifted tilde key. If you want to interact with that menu up there without having to point the mouse at it and have it draw a picture, you hit the escape key and then you hit that little back leaning tick, and that drags up here that menu as a bunch of choices, as a bunch of text, and it puts the default of the first one, file, there. If I want to select any of these other things from that menu, I just type the letter, right? So if I wanted to go in, for example, to the options, I type O, and now it brings up the sub menu as if I had clicked on the options. And I got all these letters here that I can pick, just like it would have if I had done the drop down box on the clicking and drawing the picture. But you see, it's a heck of a lot faster for it to throw these characters up on the screen than it is to draw me a picture that has those words in it as a picture. Is everybody cool with this concept? So anything you can do by pointing at something and clicking on it with the mouse, you can also do it by doing the keyboard. And if you're operating remotely, it's a heck of a lot quicker. If you can't remember something, you can always fall back to the slow click on it and draw me a picture way of interacting with it. Any questions about this? So I don't really want to do anything in here in these options other than bring them up to show you this, but let me just type the capital H, this guy here, this capital H. And what that'll do is it'll highlight it had it already set, so I screwed it up, and now the show parenthesis mode has been turned off. So how do I get it back to turn it on? Hit the escape, hit the back leaning key under it, right? Now type O for options, and now type capital H, and I've turned the show paren mode on. Do you see how quick that was as opposed to waiting for it to draw pictures on my screen? Just doing it through the text, right? I could have done options, sit here and wait for it to draw a picture across the internet. There it comes, drag it down here, whatever. Click on this highlight matching parenthesis and turn it off. You can do that. And if you have a nice, fast internet connection, great, go for it, right? But if you don't want to worry about the lag of drawing the picture, escape key, the key right under the escape key, hit the O for options, pick what you want. Now, I don't want to do anything. So the key you need to know here is Control G. Control G in Emacs is basically like, oh, I really didn't want to do this anyway. Back me out of this crap, right? So Control G is the, oh, get me out of this, right? Questions so far? So hopefully you're doing this as I'm doing it live on your screen there. Let me get this arranged a little better. I got a question here. Can you get a short description of what the options do, like when you mouse over them? Yeah, it had the words there. Let me just bring it back up here. Escape, left-leaning tick. Oh, I didn't select the window. Right? And now I pick the options, just like clicking on options up there with the O, right? And you see when I do, it gives me all the stuff like it was a submenu, right? And it tells me what that does, right? So it does give you a description, right? Just like when you mouse over something. Does that answer your question? So I'm going to do my Control G, get me out of here, right? Okay. So the point is, if I was up at Western in the lab, I could just click my brains out and I couldn't even tell that it wasn't running locally on my computer because I got gigabit connectivity to the computer. But if I'm going across this slow crap across, I'm in Paris, right? And I'm trying to log into the computer science department thing and it's bouncing the stuff across the world to me. I would prefer just to use the keyboard commands and have the text rather than every time I do something, it's got to stop and draw me a picture, send 8 billion pixels across the internet, right? Get the concept? But what I'm telling you is the old school geeks that play this thing like a concert pianist, they don't use this crap. They use two hands on the keyboard and they make the thing run at the speed of light, basically. Okay, you down with this concept? All right, so instead of going through the menu to do a bunch of junk and burrow down in there in the submenus or whatever, there are a bunch of key bindings that immediately give you some of those commands, right? Whether you don't have to burrow down to get to them through the menu thing, right? So you have to start accumulating what are all these magic key bindings, right? That I can immediately do without having to go through a bunch of menu based kind of junk, right? So we have to learn a few basic ones of those. Let me ask before I go any further, is there anybody that is coming in without X Windows, just using a text interface, raise your hand. If okay, Matthew, you are? That's cool. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm on Linux, so no X Windows. No, that doesn't make any sense, Sam. If you're on Linux, you by default have X Windows. Everything you see in a window on your Linux system is got there on the screen, that picture, by having X Windows draw it. So you automatically have X Windows on a Linux machine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this other window over here, right? And I came here, right, without the X window stuff. Now what I do, frankly, is I have my show you in Putty, right? I have all of these guys have X Windows forwarding, and then you can make ones that say something like no X Linux 11. So if I wanted to get to Linux 11 and I don't want it to pump X Windows stuff, I could just have another one of these things in there and use that one when I just want a text interface. I don't want to have all the delay of all the graphical drawing stuff. So you can build different things in here and pick which one you want. And so this one over here, I went through this go to machine 11 without the X forwarding turned on. And then I went over to Schofield without the -Y, right? So I'm not pumping X Windows stuff back down this connection. So for those of you who aren't using the X Windows, then I will show you what it looks like over here. Go to box, right? And now I'll run Emacs over there. And when you run Emacs and you don't do the X Windows stuff, I think I have X Windows turned off on this one. Maybe I lied. I got X Windows. So let me get out of this and get one that doesn't have X Windows. Let me exit out of this. Exit out of that. And then I'll go through the one that doesn't have X Windows turned on. So we'll go down here to my that sucker just to make sure. Look in here. Yeah. See, it's not turned on. Yeah. So if I log into that one, now I don't have the X Windows stuff going, right? And let's make sure I got my, yeah, see this SSH command doesn't have the -Y. So I'll run that one. And then get on Schofield over there. And so now if I go to my sandbox, run Emacs, see, it came up magically fast, right? But you're just getting the textual window, not a picture drawn at you, right? You can blast that down just fast. So if you don't want the pictures, that's cool. I don't like the colors that it gives me here, so I tend to use this one anyway, even if I'm just using the keyboard commands. But to show you that the keyboard commands still work, see all this junk up here? Well, how do I get to that? Well, you hit the escape, hit the key under the escape, and it's just like what we did over here. You see all those choices, options, whatever, right? So you're still going through the menu stuff, Control G, get out of there, just like you did over here. So if you don't have the X window stuff going, you can still just use the Emacs stuff, and all the stuff's going to work the same with the keyboard commands. You just don't have the ability to, click on the thing up there like you do as a backup over here. Is everybody cool with that idea? So, build some ways of going in with X and without X, and you know, just mix and match and see what you like. You know, if you don't need the picture, then fine, right? All right, we ready to go on? Any questions? Raise your hand if you got one. So now we need to learn a few of these magic key bindings so we don't have to go through some menu system to get to things, right? So first off, Emacs is not like VI. VI is a modal editor where you get into insert mode and then you type characters in and then you get out of insert mode and all this kind of nonsense. Emacs, whatever the heck you type, you know, is just going to show up on the screen, and then the backspace, you know, eats things. And then if you come over here and you hit the delete key, it eats things to the right, right? So it's a, you know, kind of WYSIWYG thing in the sense that it's just not modal. You just type things into it, move around with the cursor keys, right? I'm doing the up arrow, left arrow, down arrow. Hit the home key, takes you to the beginning of the line. The end takes you to the end of the line, right? So, you know, with that basic amount of ability, all you need to know is how to save the file and you can do anything you want to do, right? And that's pretty primitive. I mean, it's kind of like somebody that says, oh, I play the guitar. Yeah, I know 3 chords, right? Yeah, well, you kind of play the guitar, right? So um, we want to learn some other commands other than just moving around and typing on the screen and deleting things. But before we do anything, what we're going to do here, since I named this thing hello.c, is let's write the C hello world program. So we're going to put a comment in, right? The whole world program of much renown. And so that's like a comment. Now, of course, in C, when you use the /splat, you have multi-line comments. You know, this is second line of comment, right? So the /splat gives you multi-line comments. When you do this, you get a single line comment, right? So you got 2 flavors of comments in C. You got the multi-line and the single line. Now I don't want that comment, so I'm going to get rid of it. The Emacs command to get rid of it is to kill a line. They try to have mnemonic value to these things, is Control K. Control K blows the line away, right? Everything on that line just got eaten. Now, if I made a mistake and I wanted to get back what I had just killed, I could type Control Y, which stands for yank. So I can yank it back out of the kill buffer, right? Does that make sense? So your first command that you got is Control K. Your second command that you got is Control Y for kill and yank. And most every command in Emacs is either going to be hold the control magic incantation or hold the Alt key down on your Windows keyboard. On the Macintosh, I'm not sure what they labeled the counterpart or the Alt key. Does anybody know out there, you Mac users? It's not, it's Option. Is that what they call it? Yeah. So same deal. But if you don't have, some keyboards don't even have that, you can always get, that's called the meta key, the Alt or the Option, right? As opposed to the Control. Emacs calls it the meta. They symbolize it in the command descriptions with a capital M. You can always type the escape key and then type the letter you would have typed while you were holding the Alt key down, and you get the same thing. So the sequence escape letter gives you the same thing as hold the Alt down and hit the letter. So either way works. So your first 2 commands are Control K, kill the line, throw it in the kill buffer. Control Y, yank what's out in the kill buffer back and put it back in the thing, which is handy. Like, if you want to make 17 copies of something, you can throw it in the kill buffer and then yank, 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 and you just throw it all back in there 17 times, right? Good enough. All right, so we got our first command that we did. So let's continue writing our program. What's the first thing we want to put in this C program? Somebody tell me. We want to have a main function, right? Main returns an integer. So I type int, then I type main, the name of the function, and then I type, I don't want any parameters to this thing. And then the thing is going to have a body. Hope you're typing this in, right? So you got the little matching set braces, and notice it highlighted them. That was what that thing in the options we were messing with, right? Show paren mode. Whenever we went down into options and that capital H, flip toggle that on and off, right? Well, I, for my sanity, always want it on so that it shows me which one matches with the other. When I have a bunch of nested ones, you'll certainly appreciate that. Okay. Colin, is there some reason you've got a yes? You're raising your hand or what? No? Okay. So what do we want to put in the body here? Well, we want to put our magic printf, right? printf, and printf, I put a string as the first thing you put in printf. And in this case, we're just going to put hello world. And then we want a new line, close the string, close the parameters to the function, and put a semicolon character to terminate the line in C. So is there anything I've forgotten about in this program? Does anybody know? Yeah. Aha, the include. Because printf is a function. I didn't write it and give him any code to implement a function called printf, so he's got to know what is this printf thing. So I'm going to come up here and do my pound include, and you notice you get this nice syntax highlighting and all this crap, right? Pound include, and then I want to include the standard io.h file, right? And notice it matched the little highlighted the open and closing of those little brackets too, right? So now we need to save this file, right? We want to save it, and then we can try to compile it and see if we get any errors. So the way you save a file is with the magic incantation Control X, Control S. Control X, Control S, and you see he says, I wrote this file, hello.c. So everybody got that saved in a file somewhere, right? So how many control commands do we know so far? We know Control K, kill a line. Control Y, yank the kill buffer back. And the kill buffer, by the way, could have 5,000 lines in it that you're yanking back, not just one. And we know Control X, Control S, right? Is that good? So far, so good. So now, here's my cell where I kicked off this hello.c, right? And remember the trick I showed you this morning, hopefully. Oh, shoot, I want my shell prompt back, but this guy he's waiting for this guy to die, but I don't really want to terminate that guy. So I'll come over to my shell and type Control Z, which kind of like carbonizes him, like in the Star Wars thing. He's kind of frozen in time there. And he's laying in the background as a thing called a job, which you can see if you type the command jobs. Here's Emacs hello. It's stopped laying in the background. If I only have one thing in the background, I can bring it back by just by run background. and it takes that and executes it in the background. And so now it's like I had typed the original command with the ampersand. So he's still going over here, right? He's responding to my cursor. He's alive. And I got my shell prompt back, right? All that would have happened if I'd put an ampersand on the original command in the first place, right? You can't, if you're running over here without the X window stuff, you couldn't have put the ampersand because that would imply he has to fire off another window, and he can't do that without the X windows. I've only got this window here. So if I wanted to get back to my shell over here, Control Z, right? Do some shell command, and then I type foreground, which brings that job back into the foreground. So everybody see that? So if you're not using the X Windows thing, that's how you kind of freeze the thing you're doing. Control Z, go do something in the shell, run some other program, whatever. You want to bring it back, you FG foreground, boom, he comes back alive. Good enough? All right. So we press on. Well, what would we want to do with a program? Well, we'd probably want to compile it. So there's a bunch of different ways we could compile that. There it is sitting there, and I could just run my GCC command, right? -O. Let me not use the -O and show you what happens. We'll just type hello.c. So I'm going to run GCC, and it compiled it. And so you'll see a file magically appeared called a.out. Well, whenever you run the GCC thing and you compile something and you don't give it the -O to tell him the name of a file to put it in, the convention is it puts it in a file called a.out, right? That's just what they name it. So a.out is actually my executable program, right? So if I ran a.out, there's my hello world program, right? So I just up here, remember you can use the up arrow to get your commands back, right? When I did that, I didn't give him the -O, so he just put it in an a.out file for me, right? But in Emacs, I can run the compiler, right? I don't have to go over to the shell, get out of Emacs and run the compiler there. I can run the compiler right out of Emacs, right? Now, if you did the click and drool thing, you'd click on tools, right? And you'd see this little command here called compile, right? And that would be one way to get the thing running the compiler. Another way to do it is hold down the meta key, the Alt, right? And hit the X key, and see it symbolizes that with that capital M, meta X. And then I could type the word compile, right? And when I do, he says, oh, the compile command is currently set to the command make.k, which is the normal sort of thing that you would do in development in a Unix system is you'd build a thing called a make file. And then when you want to compile something, you just run the make file and it runs all the stuff that needs to be compiled and built or whatever. That's the normal sort of thing that would happen once you understand how to build make files, right? But we don't want to do that. We want the compile command to be something different. So I'm going to backspace over that, and I'm going to change the compile command that he's going to use to compile things to be GCC -O hello.c. So now whenever I compile something, he'll use this command that I've established that's not the default make.k thing. Okay, so he compiled it, and now you notice that he gave me another window here. What we call those are frames. I got this frame and that frame. And this one has the name hello.c. This one has the name compilation. There's a bunch of standard or kind of default buffers that are associated with frames in the Emacs editor. There's one for when I run shell commands right out of Emacs. It throws it in a little buffer and shows me the shell command output. So I have all these little different buffers where things are being put. And this is just a different buffer that he ran that command that I gave him. And it says compilation finished or whatever. You notice that my cursor is up here. And if I want to get rid of this information that he gave me about the thing, I put my cursor in here and then I type the magic incantation Control X, and then it's not control, it's just the number 1. So that gets me down to this one window, Control X 1. Is everybody okay? Now that buffer still exists that had that information in it. And if you went up here to buffers, right, you would see that you got all these buffers. You got something called scratch and messages. You got something called completions, which is command completions. And then you got a thing called compilation. Well, that's that stuff we were looking at, right? There it is. It's still in that buffer. You got all these standard sort of buffers up there. And you don't have to use the click and rule. You can use commands to bounce around between all these different buffers in various ways that we'll look at eventually. Let's go back to our hello buffer. Let's intentionally put got a question? The command to compile, okay. I'll just show you on the screen what it was. Oops, go to the compilation buffer. It's gcc-o hello.c. Oh, you mean the thing to bring up the prompt for compile? Yeah, Alt X and then type the word compile. One other concept you got to realize is when you type Alt X, you can type the name of about 40,000 functions. And all you're doing is you're running a function that's written in a language called eLisp that manipulates what's going on. So Alt X compile, Alt X recompile, Alt X, 4 million different things you could type there, right? So let's go back to our buffer for the hello.c program and put an error in there. I want to see what happens in my compilation window when I have a boo-boo, right? So I'm going to come in here and say, how can I make a good error? This is so Mickey Mouse. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tell him to print out, do another printf here. I just put another one in here and say print f parens %d. I'll tell you what this means in a minute. Close paren, comma, I, right? And then terminate it. So I'm telling him to print out the contents of the variable I formatted as a decimal number. That's what the magic incantation. In the string that you have in printf, you embed these little % incantations, and they match up left to right with all the variables that you list. telling what format you want to print that variable out in. So embedded into this string can be these little incantations. So this is a printf saying, print out the contents of the variable I as a decimal, but I'm not declaring the variable I. That's my error I'm trying to introduce, right? So I would do what now? I would say Control X, Control S, and I just saved that into my file, right? And now I want to recompile the thing. Well, I've already established my compile command previously as gcc-o hello hello.c, right? So then I will use the recompile command now, right? So I'll type Alt X, the meta key. I don't know what the meta key is on your Mac keyboard. It's some other character. It's got one. But I don't know what it is. But there is one. It's the counterpart of the Alt on a window, on a PC keyboard. So I do my Alt X, that gives me that thing. And I could type compile in again, but I can also just type recompile there. And that's going to reuse whatever I set the compile command to. So I don't, and now it recompiled it using that same compile command we'd entered before, right? And now in my compilation window, I got trouble in River City. I got a problem here, right? I got this I undeclared first use in this function. You see it's kind of underlined and is looking like a hyperlink when I put my mouse over it, right? So if I put my mouse over that and I hit the click on the thing, right? Then he will put the cursor up here where the error is. But he doesn't know where that error lives because the error is there's nowhere it's declared, so I can't tell you where it's not declared. So that's kind of a bad example, right? But in general, if you had errors, you could click on these little guys and it would plop your mouse up into the thing here, showing you where the error was in your code, and then you'd go in and correct them. But he can't tell me where I didn't define it, so I can't do that here. So I'm going to click up here, and then we could go in and declare the variable I, right? Up there in the program, right? And notice he's saying the compilation window, compilation exited abnormally with code, whatever, 1, right? So let me get rid of that. Control X1 to do that, right? Yours compiled without an error despite not declaring I. Are you on Schofield? And you had this same thing put in there? I don't know what's going. Can you share your screen with me? You can share your screen and show everybody what you got. Okay, so where do? Oh yeah, there's some goofy thing I got to do here. Where is that in this stupid Zoom thing? That's not it. I got to it the other day. Oh crap, I can't remember how to do it, guys. Maybe it's over here. It's not there. There's a way to do it, but I can't remember how to do it. Oh, wait a minute. I think I found it. Allow, no. That's not it. Well, sorry, I can't remember how to let you share your screen. I'll have to remember how this works. Well, I'm having a brain cramp. I can't remember how to tell it to let you share your screen. Oh, yeah, maybe you didn't save the file. Ah, okay, that's what's going on. So you didn't save the file, right? And when you type, did you type Alt X recompile? Because it should have told you if you had modified the thing since you saved it and you tried to recompile that it hadn't been saved since it was last changed. It should have told you that. But anyways, we'll go on. So, yeah, let me make my window a little wider here. Okay. So I got rid of the compilation window again. It's still there in these buffers if you want to look at it. And of course you can do what? Escape, key under the escape, and then type B for buffers, right? And it shows you all your buffers just like in the drop down menu. And you could pick the compilation menu with this lowercase c, and then you're seeing it, right? And then you could go to the other one. I'll show you ways to move around in the buffers without going through the menu thing, right? Essentially, you're going to type Control X, then the letter B, right? And you can type the name of the buffer, or you can use the up and down arrow keys to scroll through all the buffers and pick the one you want and hit the enter key. Did everybody get that? Control X, the letter B, and then you can scroll through all the buffers and then pick the one you want rather than going through the menu thing. Either way, it works or whatever, right? So if I was editing 400 different files at once in Emacs, I'd have 400 buffers, one for each of those files that I'm editing, and I can bop around, cut things out of one file, go over to the other, paste it in the other file. You get the idea, right? You just have all these sort of standard buffers where it's showing you the results of shell commands, the results of compilations, a buffer called Scratch, and then a EWW buffer that's used to browse the web and all this kind of crap, all the standard ones. And then for any file that you, in Emacs parlance, visit, you visit the file, right? You have another buffer for it, right? So before we go on with more magic, are there any questions that you want to ask me about what we've done so far? So what do we know? We know how to get the menu stuff without having to click on it, wait for a picture to draw, right? And we know how to, okay, only show one buffer. The buffer that you're in, if you type Control X1, that makes only one frame on the screen. So it makes the current frame that you're in be the whole screen. There are 8 million variations. So I guess I want to point you at some documentation now. Drag this thing over here. There's a magic reference card at this URL here. So if you just write that down. So Emacs is maintained by the GNU guys, right? GNU is that cute recursive acronym that stands for GNU is not Unix, right? So it doesn't really mean anything other than to be cute and have a recursive acronym. So if you go to GNU.org, GNU stuff works. And the GNU guys basically implement all of the things like the bash shell and all the utilities that you think of as being part of Unix are really just a huge collection of software maintained by an outfit called the Free Software Foundation and the GNU organization. So they're the official maintainers and documenters of Emacs and 8 million other things that go with Unix. And you got this little reference card thing, which you can remember this little URL or you can print it out or whatever. And it gives you a quick and dirty sort of overview of a whole bunch of Emacs commands here. So let's just look at some of them quickly and see which ones we know and which ones are new to us. Is that big enough to see on the screen? Hopefully. I seem to be having trouble getting it to be exactly. There we go. All right. So Control Z, we already talked about. Suspend Emacs, right? Or turn it into an icon under X. Exit Emacs is Control X, Control C. So that's a good one to know. How do I get the heck out of this thing, right? So see how similar it is to save. Control X, Control S is save. I don't know why they came up with C for quit. So anyway, there's a bazillion of these Control X things, you'll notice, right? And then if I want to read a file, I want to open a file, it's Control X, Control F, right? Save, Control X, Control S. Save all the files is Control X and the S without the control. So if I had like 27 files open and I wanted to save all of them in one fell swoop, that would do it. This is a cool one. Control XI says, I'm going to type in the name of a file. It'll prompt me for it. Go get that file and insert its contents right here in line into the thing I'm currently editing. Suck the contents of that file in here. Replace this file with the file you really want. Control XV. Write buffer to specified file. And so the buffer is any of these little buffers that we're talking about moving between. So you can save off the contents of a buffer to a file. Anyway, the one I want to show you next are some motion commands, and they have a very logical structure about how to move around in the characters in the file. You can use a left arrow, or you can use Control B, which stands for back, right? You can use a right arrow, or you can use Control F, which stands for forward. Now notice the parallelism here. Meta B, as opposed to Control B, and on the PC keyboard it'd be Alt B, says move backward a word. So it's like a bigger version of the control. The meta is always like a, bigger version of whatever the other letters for in control. So move backward a word, move forward a word. Control P, which stands for previous, goes to the previous line, but you could also use the up arrow key. Control N, which stands for next, go to the next line in the file, or down arrow does the same thing. Control A, or the home key on your keyboard, takes you to the beginning of the line. Control E takes you to the end of the line. The end key on the keyboard does the same thing. Notice the parallelism though. Meta A, rather than going to the beginning of the line, goes to the beginning of a sentence. So if I had a sentence that took up like 3 lines of text in the thing, and I did meta A, it'd take me all the way back to the beginning of that sentence, right? Similarly, meta E takes me to the end of a sentence. Same thing for a paragraph. If I'm writing a text document and I have a bunch of sentences in a paragraph, meta left paren takes me to the beginning of the paragraph. I mean, it's a set brace thing, meta set brace symbol. Meta right set brace takes me to the end of the paragraph. The page up, page down keys work perfectly fine. This is saying, take me to the beginning of the page. Take me to the end of the page, right? Okay. So take me to the beginning of a function that I'm working in my C program. Take me to the end of the function. So you have all these sort of logically constructed things. Scrolling, Control V is just like page down. Meta V is like page up. Those keys on the keyboard work too. Scroll the whole thing left, scroll the whole thing right, which is like moving the thing across in front of your face. So those aren't used very much. The kill ones, we've already gone over a little bit. You know, the delete key, same thing as Control D for delete. Meta, that's the Alt and the delete key, would delete a word. It's a bigger version of the Control D, right? So meta D, same thing, delete a word. Delete a line to the end of the line is Control K is the one I showed you, right? And then a sentence, meta K deletes a sentence, et cetera, et cetera. Control W wipes a region. So we need to know how to set a region. So let's get the thing back here and play with it. Let's go back to our deal here. So here I am, and I want to set a region, right? Like the whole body of the function, say. So I want to come in here and set the whole body of the function to be a region. Well, hold down the control, hold down the shift, and hit the @ sign. And notice it said mark set. So that's the beginning of the region. Now, if I hit the down arrow, see it's highlighting them. That's defined a region between the mark and the current position of the cursor. If I type Control W, that wipes the region, right? So that's how you get a whole big block of stuff and blow it away. Well, what if I was in my program refactoring my code and I wanted to grab this hunk of code and move it somewhere else in the program? Well, it's in the kill buffer. So how do you get it back? Control Y yanks what was in the kill buffer back. So that's real handy when you're programming a lot of times, because you want to, oh, I don't want to put this block of code here. It really needs to belong over here in the program. And so you define the region. Control Shift @ sign is the beginning of the region. There's another way to do that that I can't remember. And then you just move the cursor down to wherever you want the end of the region to be. And then you wipe it with Control W. You yank it back with Control Y for yank. Okay. How do I get to the beginning of my file? That's always a nice thing to know, right? You type escape and then you type the less than sign, right? If you type escape and the greater than sign, it takes you to the end of the file, right? If you have a big file and you want to make the current, you want to reorient the file on the screen so that the current position of the cursor becomes the middle of the screen so you can see stuff below it. That's Control L. So that we can't really do that here without having a bunch of stuff that we put in here so it's bigger than one thing. So if I wanted that to be the middle of the screen, I'd do Control L. And you see what it did? It oriented the thing so I'm positioning that as the middle of the screen. That's convenient sometimes, when you want to see what's above and below where you're currently positioned. So how do I get rid of all this junk I put in there? Well, I could just start doing Control K, Control K, Control K, Control K. That would do it, right? But I can also set the mark, Control Shift @ escape greater than, go to the bottom of the file, and then hit the delete key. Boom, blew it away, right? Questions about that? Now, if I do my Control L, it made where my position was the middle of the screen, right? So I see that come back. So far we know how to do what? We can compile, we can edit, we can save. We can move around in various ways. I can move around with the arrows. I can hold the control down and hit the right arrow. And I can go word by word, right? Left arrow goes word by word. Control up, control down is the same thing as escape less than, escape greater than. Control up takes me to the beginning, control down takes me to the end. So go to the end of the line, Control E, go to the beginning of the line, Control A, right? Questions about navigating around easily, wiping out a line, wiping out a region, yanking something back from the kill buffer. You'll learn later on that there are ways that you are putting stuff into like a big stack full of things that you killed, and you can go through that stack and yank things back out of it so they're not gone, right? How do I save the file? Control X, Control S, right? So I'm going to take a 2 or 3 minute break and let you play around just putting text in it and deleting text out, and play around with moving around and killing things and yanking them back. And you can't screw anything up. It's just a file. We can always recreate it. So play around with what you know so far, trying to do compile or recompile. And then I'll come back and show you how to run shell commands from within Emacs, how to run a browser and browse the web from within Emacs, some other magic tricks. Back in about 3 or 4 minutes. Well, guys, the time has gotten away from me. I'm supposed to be at another Zoom meeting that started at 2:30 with my research guys. So I will pick up here tomorrow at office hours, and we can learn more magic tricks about how to run things out of Emacs, just run shell commands and see the output in different buffers and things, all that kind of stuff. But I need to get to that other meeting now. So I'm going to leave and pick up here tomorrow office hours. Okay. So play with it. I mean, that's what the computer is good for. It's the best toy man ever created, right? Just play around with all that stuff, go through the cheat sheet, just try things out. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.